These 3 recycled projects were so easy to make, and I used things that I already had on hand.
Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well. If you're new here, I'm Laurie, welcome, and thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me. Today I'm participating in an open collab with the only requirement being that you use a bottle or a jar in your project. It's being hosted by Mama Dares to DIY, Terrarium Crafts, and Sweet Urban Rose. All 3 of these ladies are super talented, and I'm going to link their channels below so you can check them out, along with the playlist for this challenge. If you're new here and you haven't yet subscribed and you think you'd like to come back and hang out with me again, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below.
I'm starting my seashell keeper with a 16-ounce salsa jar. I'm also using one of these little glass cups. They come in a 4-pack from the Dollar Tree. I'm using these pretty ribbons that I already had on hand. I'm using this scallop shell as an accent, along with this crystal knob. This little glass bowl is going to be the lid. I'm using my sandpaper and I'm scratching a small circle on the top. Once that's done, I'm lightly sanding the bottom of the knob to remove the shiny finish. Using my E6000, I attached the crystal knob to the bottom of the bowl. I'm then putting it aside and letting it set up. I'm adding a pretty ribbon accent, so all I'm doing is cutting it to size and hot gluing it into place. I'm then adding a sheer white ribbon to the center and making sure that I attach it at the seams. To finish my pretty coastal seashell keeper, I'm hot gluing this scallop shell to the front. Now all that's left to do is add my collection of shells. I love the way this turned out. I used things that I had on hand, and I think it's such a pretty way to show off my shell collection. For my hanging coastal lantern, I'm using a recycled pickle jar. I'm wrapping my jar with this natural polished hemp, but you can always use jute or twine. This project is so easy to make. All I'm doing is hot gluing the hemp around the lower section of my jar. I tried not to use too much hot glue as I worked my way around the jar. I'm adding an LED candle to the center, so I stopped my hemp just shy of halfway up. With the bottom complete, I then followed the exact same instructions on the top. Once that's done, we're now going to add the hangers. I cut 2 pieces of the hemp at 44 inches each, and that's just personal preference. You can cut yours at any length you'd like. I made sure that the 2 ends matched up, and then I found the center point on the hemp. I placed the center on the bottom of the jar. With my glue gun, I tacked it in place. I then attached the second piece of hemp to the first, making an X on the bottom. Because I want this to hang level, I made sure to tack each piece evenly on the bottom. I flipped the jar over and then hot glued each side, bottom and top, onto the jar. While I was gluing them on, I made sure to keep the hangers as straight as possible. Two of the things that I really like about this lantern is, first of all, it didn't cost me anything to make, and second of all, it works up so quickly. Once I have all the hangers attached, I'm now going to knot them at the end. After I made sure it was hanging level, I then trimmed off the excess hemp. I'm using an LED candle for this project and I need to raise it up in the lantern. I'm going to use some play sand that I found out in my barn. I want my project to have a little color in it, so I'm using some blue and yellow food coloring to tint the sand. Once it was added, all I did was then mix it together. The worst part of mixing the dye into the sand wasn't so much the mixing, but it was that grating sound of the sand against the side of the plastic. Once it was all mixed together and I had the color that I wanted, I then just added it to the lantern. I'm using this LED candle that I recycled from one of my other projects. And to finish up and give it that coastal feel, I'm adding in some assorted shells. As most of you know, my husband's a firefighter, so I really like using LED candles in these projects because you never have to worry about fire. Once you're done, all you need to do is hang it up and enjoy it. For my last project, I'm using a pasta sauce jar. I'm recycling some broom handles from a video where I made a butterfly out of the broom. Actually, I'll link that above in case you'd like to check it out. I'm using turquoise sky and white spray paint, and the same ribbon I used in my first project. I'm also using these little branches that I cut from a birch tree. I'm using the bamboo stems from the handle, and all I'm going to do is measure them against the jar and then cut them. After they're all cut, I then hot glued them to the side of the jar. Each time I attached them, I stood up the jar to make sure they were flush with the table. The most important part when you're attaching the bamboo is to make sure that you keep it straight. When I was done, I then sprayed it with my turquoise sky. I then sprayed half the branches with each color. I hot glued a piece of ribbon to the back part of my jar and then made a bow. I trimmed the ribbon tails and then I added a little shell accent. And then all that was left to do was place the branches into the jar.
Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you had fun, and if you haven't yet subscribed, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below. I'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.